Welcome to the X Block.
Am I right, Marine? Sir, yes, sir! Then listen up.
You're listening to the X Block. I'm Jared. He's Caleb. Let's get into it.
You are listening to the X Block Podcast, episode 16. I'm Jared. He's Caleb.
Hey,
And this is the world's #1 Xbox podcast.
probably. Dude, we're back. We're
We
back,
are.
Jaron. We
Normal
visited
time.
We visited E3. You and me.
Yep. We came, we saw, we conquered. We have awards, but that's later in the show.
We do. And for any of you who were listening to our E3 coverage and wondered, Caleb, Jaron, what happened to the Capcom conference? What happened to Bandai Namco? Well, let me tell you, we showed up, but they did not. So it was not worth covering. So yeah, we didn't do those in the end. Those were really disappointing. Honestly, like nothing happened.
Yeah, it's true. Absolutely nothing happened. But since E3 ended, Caleb, we
Yeah,
were
what's up,
able to
man?
get back into games.
Yeah,
I think
we were
a little.
a little bit. Yeah.
And what did you play?
Oh, dude, I think since our last podcast, I think I started and finished Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. So that was fun. I have some problems with that game that no one really I heard complaining about a ton. But dude, you know how you in that game you explore and then you have the combat, but it's all about kind of jumping around and all that, and you're just like going down different paths, and it's a Metroidvania, really hard. Yeah, there's way too much exploring. Like there's way too much. It's super disproportionate. It's too long. There's too much of it. If you want like everything too, there's way too much backtracking. But even when there's not, it's just like a lot of climbing, But it's not as good as say like a Tomb Raider, right?
Yeah.
And then the combat just is really good for a while, and then it just gets kind of a little bit samey. But I was playing on a lower difficulty because there were no difficulty achievements. It was good though. Like the story's the best part of that game, but I feel like the exploration and all that gets in the way of the story, which is kind of annoying. Like I don't know, it's like the worst part, I don't know how you felt about that. You played the game.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm usually more of a story guy, so I just was enjoying the story, and yeah, I felt like I had to move around and go a lot of different places all the time. But yeah, I get where that part could have been a little long-winded and unnecessary. I guess I just didn't notice it as much because I was kind of just powering through it since the game's not that long. And
Yeah,
now
it's not.
I've been through the Assassin's Creed hole, and I now have seen the light of other games.
The real hole. Yeah, that's fair. And I think you told me one time, we were like talking over party chat or something. We were talking one night, and when you played it like, I don't know, a year ago or a little less, and you explained it to me, you're like, yeah, for some reason, and it like hit me that I suddenly remembered it. For some reason, your little robot, BD1, he like goes into a chest and to get materials, and that's how you get the material. Like you walk up to a chest, you like hold X on it or whatever, and then he like, it opens and he jumps in. Every single time, dude, Cal's like, BD, where you going? Or something. And that happens every time. And you're like, dude, we've opened 100 chests. Why are you asking him where he's going? Or he's like, BD, what are you doing? And you're like, you know what he's doing. It's a chest. And I was like, I don't know why they didn't just like change that or fix that. It was every time you opened a chest, it was the most profound experience for that man. But yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, it gives the impression that you control BD1 and him separately, and they don't know that you're controlling either of them.
Exactly. And the dialogue just makes it so weird. But when he does that, it's bizarre. But yeah, I beat that, got all the achievements. And then I guess what else have I been playing? I've been playing a little bit of back to my old ass achievement games. Jared, you ready? I've been playing Star Wars Battlefront 2015. I've been playing some of the multiplayer of that game because it has like double XP, now? And there's an achievement to get to level 50, and I want to get it. And so I'm level 42, and so I'm pretty close, and it's not that bad. And there are a couple miscellaneous achievements that I could get. For instance, I got an achievement to be the top, get the highest number of kills in a match of Blast, which is just like team deathmatch. So yeah. I was playing that, and then remember Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Tenkaichi, Jaren? You remember that game?
Oh, did you find someone?
I did. I found a young gentleman. Shout out to Siraj 2. I messaged him. He's not even a guy who completes games anymore, or goes for achievements super hard. He just happens to have
reformed?
a TA account. Yeah, he is reformed. He's way better than me. Yeah. So I messaged him because I saw that he'd recently played the game. I don't know, on one of the achievements. He was like the fourth person in the line who'd recently played it. And I bothered him and I was like, hey man, if you like want to get the online achievements in this game or whatever, let me know. But in more words. And he was like, dude, turns out nice young man, just a gentleman, great guy, had a great time. Took like, 3 or 4 hours of grinding, but he and I just kind of joked about it the whole time. Seemed like a super smart dude. And we grinded out all the titles in the 60 titles, no, 30 titles in the multiplayer, but 30 titles each. Anyway, that's boring as shit, but, I'm probably going to be the last human being who completes Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Tenkaichi on this planet, so, it's kind of cool. And that's kind of the majority of what I've been playing. I guess my friend Juwan and Austin and I, we all hopped back into Rainbow Six Siege, and in which you and I played when it came out in like 2015, 2016, and got to like rank 100 something, and we're really good, but it was when the game was broken and less popular.
Back in our day.
Yeah, back in my day. So now we're back into that, and it's actually pretty fun. It's more fun to play than Call of Duty, I'll say. So good for it.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a big catch up because you and I, kind of gone for like 2 weeks, and I actually had been playing a lot, so that's kind of all I have going on.
Yeah.
What about you, my friend?
I saw you playing Star Wars Battlefront, and I like opened it up, and I was like, oh, Caleb's probably playing with like Jawan or something, playing with his friends. And I opened up your profile, and it was just like alone playing Star Wars Battlefront, and I was like, this guy's a fucking loser.
Yeah, what a fucking idiot, dude. Yeah, 2015 Star Wars Battlefront.
But I finished Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Hell yeah, dude. It's over. The grind is complete.
Yeah, except for the DLC. Not done that yet, but I guess I'm going to go back to that. And that game, I can't really spoil it. I talked to my 2 friends who had no intention of playing it and explained to them everything that I had learned about the mainline Assassin's Creed story. And let's just say that this game goes in a completely bizarre direction with it. I'm not sure really how they go forward with what they've done in this game.
Oh, you mean like in the mainline plot? Well, we thought that, which I don't think it's too much of a spoiler, but we thought that after Assassin's Creed 3. So, I'm sure they can do something.
Yeah, this game, almost a direct sequel, it seems. Like, Obviously it is to the last couple, but this has a lot of mention of Assassin's Creed 3 in it.
That actually makes me somewhat interested that they didn't just totally abandon that plot line like it seemed they did. So I'm actually more interested in that game than...
They tried really hard not to abandon it in this, but then it's an experience. That's all I'll say. And then I started playing Psychonauts 2.
Whoa, wait, you mean 1 or 2?
1.
Okay, you made the same mistake I did last podcast.
That game's fun.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So we're playing that. So people who don't know, we have a Game Pass or gameplay segment coming up later in the podcast, and Jaren is doing that for that. So we'll get there when we get there. But you think it's actually a good time? When did it come out? I forget.
Oh, dude, like on the original Xbox. It has the original Xbox boot up thing. That's the funniest part about it, is it boots up, then the game starts, right?
Yeah.
The game in-game looks great because of all Xbox's backwards compatibility things that like boost it to 4K and like add HDR to it and all this kind of stuff. But when it plays cutscenes, because those are pre-rendered, those motherfuckers are grainy as fuck. And it's really funny because it's one of the only games I've ever played where you go to gameplay and it looks twice as good as the cutscenes.
That's really weird. I wonder if it's like that if you play something like Morrowind, I think that's an original Xbox game that I never played, but yeah, I would play that if it had achievements, but that's kind of a non sequitur anyway. So it's just a platformer. That's it.
Yeah, it's a platformer kind of with like quirky characters. It's also a bit of like third person action fighting. Like you have abilities like mind powers and you can punch and all this kind of stuff. It's actually pretty fun.
So it came out in the like original Xbox days. Did it kind of fit in that era with that, or was it kind of seem like a little behind, or was it like good for the time? Or superior?
It seems it's good for the time. It seems like it's even a little ahead in some places. I wouldn't say a little ahead compared to like maybe Jak and Daxter. It's very similar to like Jak and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank. But I remember those also being at the end of the PS2 day. So if it came before those, I'm not really sure when it came out, then it's a little superior. If it came out around the same time, then it's kind of the average of a good kind of third-person platformer game around then.
Well, I know what to expect now. Is it better than SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom, Jaren?
I don't know because I've never played it.
That's the gold standard, Jaren. We all know. Everybody out there, anyone who out there who needs to know knows. All right, that's all I'll say about that.
And lastly, I played a bit of Mafia.
1?
Yeah, the definitive
Hell
remaster
yeah,
thing.
Man! Did you finally you bite the bullet? You bought it?
Sure.
Oh, okay. I see. I get what you're saying. No need to say more. All right. How do you like it?
It's far more of a chapter-based game, which I didn't expect, and it's kind of fun. I don't know if it opens up later, but like each mission is kind of like, here's what happened in the mission. And then you play through it, and like you can drive through the open world like it exists, but you don't have to. You kind of just go from like point to point in the mission, do the mission, and then it ends, and then you get another cutscene, and then like another mission title card starts. It's like if all GTA's missions happened without having to like travel between them.
That kind of seems like the Caleb way to go.
Yeah, it's pretty fun so far.
Pretty streamlined.
And that's what I've been playing. Those are my 3 games.
We've been busy little boys, Jaron. You and me.
We have been busy little boys, and we just quickly wanted to say thanks for listening to our E3 coverage if you did. And if you didn't, feel free to check it out on YouTube over at the X Block Podcast, or you can listen to it on Spotify if you just any of our podcasting platforms. If you just scroll back and look at the old ones.
Yeah.
Feel free to hit us up on Twitter at X Block Podcast and tell us what you think.
Yeah, man, we got reviews for the conferences of Ubisoft and Microsoft or Xbox/Bethesda. You know, we got one for I think it was what are the other ones we have, Jaron?
Square Enix.
Yeah, Square Enix, and then there was one more, right?
Yeah, the Summer Game Fest at the start.
Yes, it was the Summer Game Fest kickoff live. I was trying to remember, and then we were gonna do we had plans to do one for Bandai Namco, Capcom, and I think maybe Coke Primetime if they were good enough. Gearbox's thing if they were good enough, and then one more I think, but nobody showed up well enough for us to do to warrant doing a whole thing on. But those other 4, man, go check them out, see what we think. We had a whole Fire Faff segment. Got to figure out whether the conferences were Fire or Faff. It's a good time. Go check them out.
Yeah, and speaking of Bandai Namco, I guess we should hop into Outside the Box.
I'm thinking outside the box,
where we cover all the news you need to know outside the Xbox community. And our first story, Elden Ring director, how do you say that guy's name? I totally forget.
Hidetaka Miyazaki.
All right, reveals a host of new details about the game. And we're just kind of diving into a few of the big games that were shown at E3 here and giving you a bit of the stuff that came out after our initial thoughts. So like most RPGs, players are free to customize their character using a character creator similar to the one found in Dark Souls. I think some of the more interesting things in this game are obviously George R. R. Martin's had more of a hand in writing the story. So apparently it's less like find the story as the Dark Souls games are. It's more of like, here's the story.
Yeah, and there was some, I don't know if it's related, but we saw some news this week that George R. R. Martin said his part in the game had been done for like a long time. I mean, he was involved in the production of this, but like people assumed he really did just kind of write the lore and story. Like He's been not hands-on with this game for apparently literally a long time. So
that makes sense to me. A cool thing that they pointed out, which reminded me of like kind of how the Destiny type games work. It said like there's a lands between, and it's mainly made up of 6 large areas ruled by demigods and characters, which are also written by Martin, who serve as the game's main bosses and don't have to be tackled in a set order. And there's a fast travel and a hub. That's the Destiny part I was talking about.
Yeah, that's really straight from Destiny, right? Like everything, right? That's from Destiny.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, like the hub thing. I assume it's kind of just like going back to your base, I guess, in single player games used to have.
I don't know, man. I'm just saying, when Destiny came out, and I think it was 2014, everyone they said that they were making their own genre of game, and which is kind of basically MMO light almost.
Yeah, pretty much.
They really did. Like, they really did revolutionize the industry with that game. Like, everyone has since wanted to be Destiny. I'll throw that out there. Just kind of an observation.
Yeah. And we'll just throw down a couple more things about this. Like, people are talking about obviously comparing it to Dark Souls. He said that you have more of a freedom of in-game progression in this game. Apparently the freedom's like much higher. I guess you just can go around more. It's less streamlined and this is where you're going. And then I found this funny. They talk about how weather and elements change how you approach battles. And then he's like, for example, if it's nighttime, both you and your enemies will be less visible to each other.
That's just real life.
I was like, yeah, so night?
Yeah, literal nighttime. At nighttime, it'll be nighttime.
But it sounds like you can like combine your different skills and different weapons, which they've like removed skills apparently from being attached to weapons. And the horseback riding is added in. That seems like a relatively cool touch. And they added a simple, as they describe it, stealth system. And then they have this cool summon spirits thing, which I think we saw in the trailer, where you can like bring a spirit to fight alongside you, and you can like summon a shield to help your back, or like an archer to assist your assault. or you can use a spirit as like a decoy.
Okay, so that's not in anything Dark Souls related, right? Or Bloodborne.
It doesn't seem to be, no.
Yeah. So this game's seems like it's really a step forward or different at least, and it's really unique compared to Dark Souls. Jared and I, if you didn't listen to our what would you say, our analysis of the the Summer Game Fest Kickoff Live, that's a fucking mouthful, conference thing. We were pretty up on this one because there has the potential. It says it has multiplayer. It's a multiplayer focused thing. I don't know how that works or what that means. It could mean nothing, and it could be multiplayer, just like the Dark Souls games were kind of multiplayer where you could jump in to like help with bosses and shit. But if it's truly like maybe a cooperative type experience, Jared and I are probably going to play this, I would think.
I don't think it is. I have this quote here, which says, with a few exceptions, multiplayer is possible even in wide open fields. You can even go straight into a boss battle. However, please note that riding is not possible in multiplayer. I don't know if he means like me getting ridden by my multiplayer partner or if he just means like the horses.
Oh, Jared, I'm going to ride you. Don't worry.
And the last thing that we'll kind of talk about here is Miyazaki thinks Elden Ring's difficulty level as a pure action game is lower than Sekiro or Bloodborne. So maybe a little bit of an easier game.
Yeah, a little more appealing for all you, not super hardcore, you gotta get good at Dark Souls people out there. And then Jared said one more thing, but on top of that, referencing, I guess George R. R. Martin was also kind of interviewed for this or someone talked to him about this at some point during the last, couple days. And he did say that Elden Ring is a Dark Souls, quote, sequel, end quote. That's how he described it. Whether he meant that literally or he was just kind of talking, I haven't really read into it because I don't super care. But he said that Elden Ring is a sequel to Dark Souls. So,
all right, well, that's cool.
Take that how you will.
I feel like that's the most we've ever talked about a Dark Souls-like game.
It's the most we ever will, Jared.
Yeah, probably most we ever will, depending on how this game does. And if they continue to kind of go down the path of making them more appealing to the general consumer.
Listen, I don't know how it's gonna go, but I'm just like how they're implementing it. But I'm just saying, Jared, it does sound like a lot of fun if it were just cooperative, co-op, seamless, with achievements, for both people, host and non-host. Just sounds like a good time. But, what do I know, Jared? What do I know about having fun with games? The fuck do I know, Jared?
Yeah, it's true. Who knows, Caleb? I'm hoping for some co-op action. I doubt it. I really doubt it.
All you Dark Souls fans just want to sit alone in your rooms and worship your fucking Dark Souls 6-inch figure statue you got from the Super Ultimate Collector's Edition while you play alone, depressed with your Dark Souls, beating on that boss, talking about how good at games you are. Or not. That's not how you are either, but that's probably how you are. I know you Dark Souls fans. I've heard you on the internet.
They're like the most active player base that I've ever encountered. Maybe like outside of Nintendo's, because those games, as we always talk about, aren't like the biggest sellers. Like everyone will point and be like, oh, they sold 1 million things here, 1 million things there. It's like the lifetime sales of Dark Souls as of like 2019 are like 25 million. It's like Madden does that in 2 years.
Yeah, it's bigger than it should be probably, but not as big as you would think given how much you hear about it in gaming circles on the internet. Same with Bloodborne, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. Pivoting over to the mass appeal kind of games, Battlefield 2042 will put bots in matches if they don't fill up with people. I'm glad this is an option because I have a feeling that just as this game progresses and goes through different life cycles and all that kind of thing, and especially with them trying to hit 128 player matches on current gen consoles, that you'll need to add in a few bots every once in a while if you want it to actually be full.
And first, that'll give you a more true to life experience of 2042, Jaren. You're going to be battling some AI humanoid androids or some shit. Some drones.
Yeah. It also means when you finish up this game, if you're one of the people like Caleb who's playing it 4 years down the line, you're going to have a much more easy experience because you just get to kill a bunch of robots because no one's playing anymore.
Dude, listen, in Star Wars Battlefront 2015, there are some achievements that I just physically can't get because no one's playing those game modes. Like you can search and you'll be put in your own lobby and you won't find anyone. So I'm actually kind of glad they're doing that. But I don't know that I ever will play Battlefield 2042. I'm not sure that I will grab that game. It may go. It'll go into EA Play at some point, right? But the whole game is multiplayer, so it's like, do I want to really have just a whole multiplayer achievement list thing going on? Who knows?
Yeah, it's true. It's a conundrum.
And you're for the bots, in multiplayer? You think that's a good thing?
Yeah, honestly, at this point, we're at a point where I feel like games just do it now, but people don't notice. Like Fortnite does it. and throws in bots every once in a while, and people are always like, oh, this is a bot-filled match, or like games just do it and don't really talk about it. So I'm fine with like every shooter kind of progressively moving forward with it. If you're gonna have huge battles, even if we get to the point in the future where like there's 128 players actually playing, why not throw in like 60 more bots, get like 200 in the action? Is it a toggle? Do you know? No, it sounds like it's part of the game.
Okay. I prefer if it's like a toggle kind of thing, and then that just benefits the person who wants it. And whoever doesn't want it can just sit in their lobby alone, but whatever.
And lastly, in news of some of the biggest upcoming games, Back 4 Blood requires a constant internet connection, which I know everyone's excited about.
No buy, Jaren. Never play it.
Yeah, everyone gets so up in arms about this, and like, I get it. I get we're still in this place of like, oh, we shouldn't have to connect to the internet for anything related to our single player games. And it's like, I feel like this runs into the situation that people talk about where they compare Game Pass to everything else. And they go, Game Pass is just a rental service. I like to own my games. And it's like, well, you only ever buy a license to your game that can be revoked at any point. You never actually own your video games.
Yeah, which has happened in the store in various storefronts before. Yeah, you don't own your games now. You just have the physical license, or you have a physical game that reads your license on your hardware.
Yeah, so I don't understand this whole like, we've got to be connected to online. Like, okay, the game, that sucks, I guess, for single player modes. Like, yeah, sure, maybe you want to play offline. And I get that, like, some of the world doesn't have constant internet connections and that kind of thing. But, like, why is Back 4 Blood the game that everyone gets up in arms about if they can't play? Like, I would get if this was like Elden Ring, like we talked about, coming out and being like, you require a multiplayer connection to play this game. Otherwise, you can't play the solo modes. It's like, this is a co-op game. It's Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, it's an online 4-player co-op shooter. So, and it's also the year 2021 of our Lord. So there's also that part.
Yeah, so I get people are annoyed about it. It's sucky news, I guess, for those people, just like it's sucky news for people who have to pay full price for it on PlayStation.
I have sympathy for people who are like, I live in buttfuck Iowa and my internet sucks and this and this. And I'm like, listen, man, straight up, that sucks, dude. Like, I'm sorry. That's no good. It's unfortunate. But, you know, here we are. So I don't care that much. I care, but not enough to be like, this is a huge problem. And in the year 2021 of our Lord, Jared.
It's true. The good old Lord.
Yeah, I mean, this was a problem, obviously, back in the Xbox One era when that launched, and there was, like, the always online thing initially. Whenever, like, you're going to have to always be online to play this and that, to use it, and everybody was like, the fuck? And it was like, all right, that was a step forward that happened a bit too soon. But, you know, almost a decade later, it's like, all right, so we can kind of assume you're just connected to the internet most of the time now, right? Especially for a co-op online shooter, as opposed to just a single player. Like, if I had to be connected to the internet to play Halo Infinite's campaign, I'd punch Jaren across the country. But, you know, that's not what's happening here. So.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess this would be more of an issue back in the PS3 days when it used to, you know, just go down for 2 months.
Inexplicably go down for, like a whole month and a half. It's crazy.
Moving on to our next topic. We're talking about Disney, Caleb. Are you excited?
I know you're excited. You're I mean, I like Disney, but you're like much bigger Disney fan than I am. So I'm sure you're gonna have a good time with this one.
Yeah, I'm fine with Disney. I like Marvel, I think, more than I like Disney as a whole, as a company. But I appreciate what they're out there doing. Like they're getting us all lots of work in the film industry, which I'm down for.
That's a good time.
So Disney let Ubisoft make a Star Wars game after meeting about its Avatar game. So this is kind of a quick story. They went in to talk to them about Avatar after they bought Fox, because I guess that brought on a meeting between the team being like, all right, we own this Avatar IP now. What are you doing?
Yeah, what are we?
And they came in and Ubisoft kind of gave them the pitch about everything to do with Avatar. And I guess Disney was a big fan of it. And they were like, we see each other a lot on the same page. And after EA's been fucking up everything, they didn't say that. That's a Jaren interjection.
I heard them think it when they did, Jaren.
And then they gave Star Wars over to Ubisoft. And they even say in their kind of quote about it that it seems like this game's pretty far away because obviously they got to finish and get out Avatar first. But they like their pitch about Avatar, which gives me hope for the Avatar game. enough that they gave them Star Wars. That being said, not the best judgment on who to give Star Wars to. Just going to throw that out there.
Yeah, so it's Ubisoft Massive is the studio. So it's The Division. That's the studio, for those of you who don't know, I'm pretty sure who made The Division, right? It was, Division 1 and 2. And so they're working on the Avatar game, which they've been working on for a long time. And they finally announced it at this year's E3 at the Ubisoft Forward. And then there's this Star Wars game that is happening. And, when you're a much older, man or woman out there, 14 years from now, when you have children and, you're driving them to the daycare and you're like, wonder if that Star Wars game's out now. And it's not. But then 10 years later, you'd be driving your grandkids to the daycare and then you can play Star Wars.
I saw people defending this game on Twitter, like people being like, Avatar, man, talk about 10 years late. And there were all these people defending in the comments.
I just did the math real quick on that 10-year thing, and I guess at that point your kid would be like, 14, 15? So the whole grandkids thing didn't make any sense, Jaron. Can't believe you let me gloss over that. Anyway, go ahead.
No, that's all I was saying. I was just shocked by the actual... I'm just always shocked by the normal people defense of Avatar. Like, if someone who's really into entertainment is like, wow, Avatar is not really as big of a deal as everyone makes. Like, 15 just normal human beings come out of the woodwork like they're zombies in a game. Like you mentioned sewer. Avatar. Yeah, and people like bust out of the sewer. They come through like the opening window of like the
diner you're in.
Diner, yeah. And they're just like, Avatar is great. And you're like, okay, I get it. It's fine.
Yeah, you and I I say you and I. You and I, like every human on the planet, saw Avatar when it came out. Yeah. Unless you're a Zoomer or something going on right now. And we thought it was good, It's a good movie. And it looked really good at the time. You were like, holy shit, this movie looks great. And then the story was like, oh yeah, it's kind of good. It's a little trite, a little basic. Yeah, it's like every movie I've seen. Like, got it. I got the themes because you beat me over the head with them. Thanks. Appreciate it. And you stole, I'll never forget, you stole the Hornet from Halo 3. You stole that and put it in your movie and called it something else. All right. I noticed. You thought I wouldn't notice, but I noticed.
Well, they stole the whole plot from Pocahontas.
And then they stole the Hornet from Halo, Jared. And now it's just, they're like, we're making 17 movies. Apparently they got like 2 of them filmed or something.
Yeah, dude, who knows? I don't know.
And a game's coming out. The game is the most real Avatar thing we've seen since the movie, which is ironic.
It's still James Cameron, though, that somehow he'll come out with that movie and it'll make $2 billion.
I'm pretty sure he does have 1 or 2 of them filmed. Because he said they were going to make like 5 more or something.
He said something like that.
I think they have 1 filmed, like ready to go.
Okay.
Mr. Phil Manjarin. All right. Okay, James.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't believe them ever when they talk about Avatar, but I always know that it's somehow going to make $2 billion.
Yeah, how did they make a game before they put out another movie?
They made 2, technically.
Oh, yeah. What was the other one? I remember them doing something with that.
Ubisoft Massive originally made another Avatar game at the very beginning, like right after the movie came out.
Oh, I don't remember it. So I thought I did, and now I'm thinking about it and I don't.
Next up in the Disney news, Disney is open to indie game developers using its properties. Here we go, Caleb. Here's our shot.
I'm ready.
We get to make Rapunzel's hair the brushing simulator.
That's, some I don't know what you would call them, degenerates out there would buy that.
In my talking points of the show, I just had I make a Disney game joke here. I didn't know what it was. That was it.
I give it a B, at least, for just on the fly coming up with it. And I give me an A for calling people who would buy it degenerates.
I like that Disney's open to just letting indie game developers using their IP without, making them pay $50 million like I bet they make all these other studios pay.
I feel like I could brush Rapunzel's hair pretty good, dude. I feel like I could, there wouldn't be any tangles or anything. I feel like I'd be great at it.
Is that what the game's called? Untangled?
Yeah, dude, we already got a name. All right. Now we need a tagline. I can't think of one on the spot, but yeah, I mean, that's all I'm thinking about. I'm just like, yeah, we could nail that. We would make a great game.
And last, in Outside the Box, the Five Nights at Freddy's creator has left and the industry is celebrating, Caleb. Now, I don't really want to talk about the whole controversies and shit behind this because I think that just more the story here is that everyone in the games industry is celebrating this, but reading his tweets and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't really feel like Damage Control I left. It feels like, yeah, I just didn't feel like making games anymore, so I bounced with my huge wad of cash, and all the games industry's like, yo, we got him. We got him.
I feel like he didn't want to taint the brand any. So, like, the IP is going to live on, the Five Nights at Freddy's thing and stuff that's going on there. That's actually going to continue, and he's just not going to be directly associated with it. So I think that's why he retired, is because he didn't want to, affect the product. And he could, clearly.
Yeah, the weird thing is like they point out all of this so-called controversy in this article because of like him donating to Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell and all that kind of stuff, which obviously I'm not the biggest fan of those guys, being a guy who lives in Canada where my kind of fundamental beliefs don't line up with them. But I'm also kind of for like, if the guy wants to give money to whoever he wants to give money to, by all means. But I don't understand how everyone's taking this as like, oh, we got him and the public hates him, when his like announcement went live, social media blew up to the hashtag thank you Scott, and it was in the top 3 trending Twitter topics in the United States for like the whole day.
Yeah, I actually saw that. It was crazy. People were coming out in droves. I feel like, I don't know, I don't know him, so I haven't talked to him, obviously. So I don't know why he retired, per se. I know he had the statement and all that, but I haven't actually, like, talked to him in person and been like, why'd you retire? I feel like he didn't have to if he didn't really, at this point, want, like, I think he has a large enough fan base and support, but I don't know if a Five Nights Freddy movie is still happening. I know it was at some point.
It is. It's attached to Blumhouse. They're already in kind of like, I think the script might be done, and I'm pretty sure it's in production.
Maybe he didn't want that to be affected too and stuff, and he's just in a situation where he can kind of step away without harming the brand. That's just kind of an assumption, but yeah, that's a whole thing, man.
I feel like just knowing film relatively well, that in the game scene, I feel like that far more impacts you because it's how the media covers you. If you're a smaller developer, they shit on you for your political opinions, where if you're like a huge, bigger developer, then they don't really, because I bet you the head of every single company largely donates conservative because they want to keep their money.
Probably. And just kind of as an aside, Scott Cawthon doesn't seem like a bad guy. He says he's like a Christian, pro-life dude. He's conservative, all that. And he's like, he peacefully donated money to, I guess it would be, what's his name? Well, it was Donald Trump and then Mitch McConnell, who's now the Senate Minority Leader. And he just did that, and people just lost their fucking mind. And shout out to Ian Walker, by the way, editorializing in the article for Kotaku, who said that Cawthon responded to the public backlash by reiterating his beliefs while also claiming to have love for the LGBTQ plus members of his fan base, despite supporting powerful people who have done everything they can to harm them. Okay, so if you go to Saudi Arabia or a country like that, you get stoned and die for being gay. So shout out to you, Ian, for being the smartest motherfucker out there. Everything they can in the United States of America. Good for you, man.
Yeah, like obviously they haven't helped, but
I mean, they just took a Pew Research poll and they said 70% or something of Republicans believe in gay marriage. So
yeah, which is wild.
Which is wild considering 2 decades ago.
Yeah, so I'm all for people learning and becoming better people at their own pace. I don't feel like we have to beat them over the head with growing.
I don't feel like Scott Cawthon hurt anybody. So it's kind of a weird backlash thing.
Yeah, I'm glad he's bouncing with his money.
Yeah, good for him. I mean, he earned it. He made those games and they were popular with no media support. Yeah, he just got influencers like Markiplier to like support, like that's who made him or his games popular and everything. So, like, and he kind of made a unique genre of horror that was maybe people consider trite or not that great at now, but it was pretty unique when it came out. So good for that guy.
Yeah. And now the review roundup.
In a world where reviews are too long to read and review videos are too long to watch, one man will compile all of the reviews and turn them into one easily digestible stream of information. This is the Review Roundup.
All right, Caleb. And now we're going to talk about Ratchet and Clank.
Oh, no, we're not, Jerry. Get the fuck out of here. This is an Xbox podcast, bitch. Get the hell out of here with that shit.
Yeah, we're definitely not going to do that. That being said, a couple weeks ago, it's just too far past at this point, but they dropped that Sniper Ghost Warriors contract, whatever the fuck that game's called.
Contracts 2. It's Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts 2.
Yeah, apparently it's good. So if that's your kind of thing, it has a 79 on Metacritic, which I really didn't expect to see from that game. So by all means, go check that out.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Sniper Ghost Warrior games. I have all the achievements in Sniper Ghost Warrior 1, 2, and 3. And this is the only time I ever get to mention that in public and it be relevant. So I'm going to say it. And then Sniper Ghost Warriors Contracts, haven't played that yet. But apparently those games are maybe better than the just regular Sniper Ghost Warrior games. And I don't know exactly who develops them, but I think they're made on Crytek, and which is kind of unique. And the game looked cool. Like I actually watched the trailer in the store of Sniper Ghost Warriors Contracts 2. And I was like, oh, this looks pretty good, pretty interesting. If you're into sniping and FPS games, you know, I would go in for it.
Sorry, Caleb. I had to step back, because I had to dodge your fucking achievement dick when you brought it out. Like,
dude, yeah, it's
I
pretty
got all
long,
the
man.
achievements.
It's a bit long, dude. It's kind of heavy. Yeah, I know what you mean.
And that's it for the review roundup, because really, like, at this point until the fall, is it even a segment? Who knows?
Listen, you're all crying right now, but when September and October hit, you're going to be fucking begging us to stop talking about the review roundup. Why does the review roundup take up half the show? Oh, this is what you asked for, so don't come crying whenever games start coming out. Don't come crying to me, all right? I'm going to tell you.
And now, the X Block.
Whoa,
Whoa, it got more intense. It got more intense that time.
Hey, I had a little zinger there at the end, a little bonus, for the new
So,
listener.
Caleb,
Yeah.
why wasn't Everwild at E3?
Well, our boy, Andy Robinson, over at the Video Games Chronicle. Sorry, I forgot the S. I almost fucked up, Jared. Video Games Chronicle over there. He announced, I think, shortly after the Microsoft or the Xbox Bethesda, whichever you prefer, conference on Sunday, whenever that happened in E3. He was like, yo, why? He was like, I'm going to release an article. It's pretty important in like an hour. And then, Jared, an hour passed, and he did. And then he said that Everwild wasn't at E3 because it essentially got rebooted.
And they're optimistically targeting 2024.
Yeah, which, I mean, here's what I have to say about it. I think he interviewed people at the studio, right? Or he had like anonymous sources or something.
Yeah, he said this is according to his publishing sources.
Yeah, so he had sources on that. And he said that the game got rebooted essentially because the developers were having trouble making the combat system or the system in that game where it didn't revolve around combat. So the game was supposed to be like an entirely peaceful kind of thing, which we kind of assumed just from watching the trailers. It looked so weird. They got so weird that they had trouble developing an actual game because it was hard to develop around there being no combat. And so just with design problems and all that, they decided instead of releasing this really, really weird game, they were just like, fuck it. And they scrapped it. They're like, starting over. Go scrap it, get the paper, throw it out, going again. And so now they're just redeveloping Everwild, which now I guess that gives Sea of Thieves more time to shine, which Sea of Thieves is Rare's other popular game, obviously that released in 2017. And at E3, they announced the Pirate's Life, a DLC, I think along with I guess it was not DLC really. It's just an update.
Yeah, it's like a full story.
Yeah, it's an update along with Season 3's Battle Pass, I think it is. And so that game is really trucking along and it's really popular. And I think it's only going to get more popular. And it already has, I think, over 20 million players, if I'm not mistaken. And
Did you see the second trailer for
no.
the Pirate's Life thing? That thing looks so in depth. Like that looks like it's like a legitimate story mode.
That's kind of awesome. I mean, you and I could jump in if you want. I don't know if it has achievements, but
dude,
my friend, what is his name? What's my friend's name, Jaron? Eric? Got it. Dude, they're twins. Don't worry about it. My friend Eric and his brother Walter, we've been fishing. I told you we fish and Sea of Thieves. Eric became a pirate legend, man. He did it. He got to level 50 in the Gold Hoarders, the Merchants, and the the Order of Souls. That's the other one, which is kind of crazy. How does that make you feel, Jaron?
I don't know how you guys get in the same room with how big your dicks are.
That's what I'm saying, man. It's just gravity warps time and space around it because it's so massive. But yeah, Sea of Thieves, expect more support from that and moving forward and kind of a heavy focus on that while Rare tries to make another game that isn't Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah, and honestly, because of the emergence of Sea of Thieves, Rare's in a totally okay place to just reboot a game.
Yeah, they can. With everything coming to Game Pass too, with Microsoft's studio acquisitions and everything coming out even over the next 3 years. And so you're probably going to forget about Rare. I mean, you won't. We'll mention it every year, but it's not going to super matter that Everwild's not coming out. No one's going to be like, they're not going to be looking around on September and October, looking up, looking down, where's Everwild? Where is it? No one's going to be saying that. They're just going to be like, oh, Rare's making a game for 30 years. That's what we're going to say.
Yep. And now moving on to apologies and justifications, but not really.
What's going on here?
Bethesda apologizes for Starfield Xbox exclusivity. Can be frustrating for PlayStation owners. Now, I know this is an apology, but
we should read it in context.
Yeah, I'm going to read it.
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to read the quote. Pete Hines said, well, I'm a PS5 player as well, and I've played games on that console, and there's games I'm going to continue to play on it. But if you want to play Starfield, PC and Xbox. Sorry, all I can say is I apologize, because I'm certain that's frustrating to folks. But there's not a whole lot I can do about it. Then this moved on to cause a bit of a stir on Twitter for people being like, why do Xbox people have to apologize for not giving PlayStation games when PlayStation's not been doing this forever, and they've been saying things like never on Twitter when people ask about Xbox, or they laugh and say buy a PlayStation 5. And then Pete Hines responded to that and he said, I'm not apologizing for exclusivity. I don't have to do anything. Some of our fans are angry and upset, and I'm sorry they are. That isn't wrong or weird. It's acknowledging how they feel. That's it. That's my whole point. Which in like terms of where we stand, I don't know where you stand, but I'm totally fine with Pete Hines being like, hey, you guys are sad, and I'm sorry that you're sad.
Yeah, no, it seemed, well, some people were saying that he was kind of apologizing for it just being exclusive, in the sense that he was like, I'm sorry that it's exclusive. But if you read all the quotes, and that's kind of how it was almost being portrayed by the industry and headlines and stuff, where it was like, Pete Hines is sorry that it's not exclusive. Like, I'm sorry, guys, it's exclusive, like apologizing for it. But if you read it in context, it did seem like he was saying, he was just empathizing, being like a normal human, where they're like, people were just like, I can't play that game on my PlayStation. And he's just like, yeah, man, like, that sucks. Sorry, man. That's life, But he wasn't like sorry that it was exclusive. He was just empathizing with your own frustration that you couldn't play it where you wanted, which is somewhat nuanced, but also very different than the former.
Yeah, everyone on Twitter was reacting to the headlines that all of the sites were writing, which weren't what he was saying.
Yeah, at all. And so that's interesting that kind of became a story, and then he clarified, which was good. And it's just an interesting story, man. I don't know. I'm with you, where I'm glad he kind of openly empathized with players. That's just like that's a nice human thing to do, where you're like, he's like, oh yeah, that sucks, guys, but that's the way it is,
And then at the end of on the opposite side of it, like Todd was still kind of like, like it sucks that people on that platform don't get to play. But he said, but at the end of the day, your ability to focus and say, this is the game I want to make. These are the platforms I want to make it on. And being able to really lean in on those is going to make it a better product.
Yeah, and that headline, the better product thing, was being circulated as if there was like a question of whether that was true or not. And I'm like, well, of course that's true. And I think I texted you or something like, that's why God of War and Spider-Man and all those kind of games on PlayStation are really good. Partially is because they're made exclusively for a specific piece of hardware in mind. That doesn't take away, so resources that would be spent otherwise are not spent on that, trying to make it on other consoles. It's really focused on specific hardware. And I know it's on PC too, so it's obviously not to the same degree or extreme as a PlayStation game that comes out only on PlayStation. But it's still better for the game, I would assume, than if it also came out on PlayStation 2, where they would have to develop for that SSD if it's a little different or whatever else.
I liked when Todd also pointed out, he's like, and that's going to be the same for Deathloop or Ghostwire Tokyo. And I was like, all right, Todd, we all know that you guys are also making the Xbox versions of those probably simultaneously. Like, you work for Xbox. Don't pretend that this is the same boat where you're like, all right, because we focused largely on making those for PlayStation, we don't have to worry about that on Xbox. It's only like a year exclusivity. Those games are going to come to Game Pass the second that exclusivity ends.
Yeah, they didn't even talk about them at E3, which is funny because they're Bethesda games. But they didn't mention them at E3 because they're not Xbox related at this point, which is kind of weird. You could have marketed those for PlayStation and it would have been bizarre, but I guess the industry and everybody would have perceived it as too much of a loss on Xbox's side because they just would have been dunking on them like, PlayStation doesn't even have to show up to fucking market at Microsoft's conference. But instead, Microsoft made it where, like, dude, those are our own games and we don't even care. Like, fuck you.
And now we're hopping over to a bit of more of a deep dive into the Xbox E3 lineup. And that's thanks to their Xbox Extended press conference that they had, which I watched. Paris Lilly, solid job hosting. Really enjoyed him. I liked when he shit on his friend.
I didn't watch it, so I'm just going to let you run with this, by the way. I got some of the news from it, but I didn't actually watch it like you did, so you're going to kind of run with this.
Okay, so starting off, they didn't start off with this, but I'm starting off with this. Starting off with Microsoft Flight Simulator is getting 5 new user-friendly features on Xbox. So they're not dumbing down the game. They were very specific about that. They were like, we're not making this game easier. We want you to become good at the game. That's why we're adding this stuff in. So the first thing they added is 10 discovery flights. So what a discovery flight is in the actual piloting way that planes work is you get in the plane with an instructor who's your co-pilot, and they largely do the hard part of flying the plane, and you just kind of get to steer and be like, wow, I'm flying the plane. And it's like designed to get you some confidence.
You get to sit on the pilot's lap as a 5-year-old in the cockpit, like real life, where you're like, I'm flying the plane. And the pilot's like, yeah, Yeah, you are. You know,
I guess you're technically flying it. It's just that they're doing all like they're paying attention to all the systems and stuff that you gradually learn how to pay attention to make sure that you don't die.
If I'm training to fly, Jaren, I want to be sitting in a pilot's lap. That's all I'm saying.
So they added these kind of like discovery flights where, yeah, you fly the plane around. It's much easier. And they kind of teach you how the game works. And they're over some of like the more top 10 places on Earth that they thought people would want to fly over. Their examples were Mount Everest, the Christ the Redeemer statue in Brazil, New York, or the pyramids.
Can you fly over like an uncontacted civilization and become the new god to them?
I'm not sure if they added that in yet. That's like a year down the line, you know, like Sea of Thieves all of a sudden out of nowhere came up with a storyline.
Yeah, they're probably going to make a battle pass for that, yeah.
They did hint at Flight Simulator that there would be much more unexpected things to come. So I don't know what that meant.
That's what I said. You fly over an uncontacted civilization and become a new god. That's unexpected, huh?
It definitely is. And the second edition that they noted was now they have like labels and points of interest on the map. So like a lot of cities are now labeled and they have like things like pins that you can look at that kind of tell you more about the place that you're flying in. So it seems less of just like, I'm flying over this and I have no idea where I am. And it seems like the game's trying to like expand to kind of tell you more about the world that you're experiencing while you're flying.
They should have an Apple Maps kind of GPS where you just end up in London even though you were trying to go to San Francisco, you know? And you're like, shit, fuck, you gotta turn around.
There's definitely way more room for error to go to the wrong place when you're in a plane.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
They announced that they're going to continue to do their like basically monthly updates where they have 2 big city overhauls planned for the rest of this year. And then they apparently have like 6 planned for next year.
Yeah, they have like some Sweden and Norway stuff, like some other European things that I didn't read too deeply about, but I assume you know everything. You're like, I text Jaren sometimes about Microsoft Flight Simulator, and he's like, you don't gotta tell Santa when Christmas is coming. He knows.
And we'll just go over these last ones a little quicker. The third improvement is revamped tutorials, so that's cool. The fourth new feature is a flight assistant, which I still don't really know. I don't think they have it, but I really want them to add co-pilots to this game where like Caleb can hop in the plane with me and we can just like fly a fucking big ass jumbo jet together.
Yeah, I just want, and I want a third hand. That's how I want my assistants. I want to have 3 hands that I can use if Jaren's not around.
So those are the last major kind of updates that were announced specifically for the Xbox version. I imagine they're also going to be on PC, but these were the ones that they designed, I guess, to try to get more people in at launch because they know they're going to have a big influx of players and they want to make the game at least more accessible to figure out. And lastly, they have announced that they're going to support multiple different flight simulator kind of controllers on Xbox. Even some of the ones that PC people use, they're finding ways to support them on Xbox, whether that's through adapters or stuff. The flight kind of peripheral community has been very apparently receptive to Xbox putting it on console.
Which is exciting if you have the money to get one. It's a good time.
And now, hopping over to the Halo Infinite multiplayer overview, which I know Caleb watched all of this Battle Pass video. Do you want to talk about this one, Caleb?
Actually, I don't know if I watched all the Battle Pass video. Is this the 12-minute multiplayer deep dive they did after the conference? Because that's what I watched.
Yeah, it's that one.
Okay, yeah, so they just kind of showed everything that's going to be happening with multiplayer in terms of the Battle Pass system, which is kind of like Halo MCC's Battle Pass right now, where it's these thematic update, like each one has its own theme, and at any point when they move on to the next Battle Pass, you can still choose to be working toward a previous Battle Pass. So you're not locked out of content at any point or anything like that. I'm pretty sure that there's no loot boxes and everything is cosmetic related, which kind of sucks because I'm pretty sure, at least maybe, I don't know if there's going to be a toggle, or at least at some point there may be a toggle, but in some modes, what they're going to do, I think, from what I understand, is outline players pretty clearly in red if they're on the other team, but otherwise let you kind of customize how you look in terms of your color scheme and things like that. I don't know if that's 100% true, even in team-based game modes, but it seems like it might be true. And if it is, that's a bit annoying because I kind of like just it giving you like a red versus blue color palette. It's iconic. But if not, not really a big deal. And so, like I said, the battle passes are just going to be what other gaming communities want. And it's kind of been a news cycle going on right now that Apex Legends people are like, yo, what the fuck? How come we can't get a Halo-style battle pass? Because you can just unlock shit from whatever battle pass you want. When they get to Battle Pass 7, you can be like, well, I want to work towards, progressing in Battle Pass 1. And you just go back and you can do that however you want. I know in Master Chief Collection, it's through like a token system, like a point system. It gives you points, and you can spend those points on whatever you want in the whichever battle pass you want. And that's kind of the battle pass overview. It's not going to affect gameplay in any way, from what I understand. Each one's going to have their own themes, and that's what I remember from watching the multiplayer deep dive. The systems look great, by the way. The menus and all of that kind of stuff. It looks like a really fun time, and I'm a huge Halo fan, and I'm excited for this Halo Infinite multiplayer. And they got AI now. I don't even know what the AI is about, really. But they have these like friendly AI that
they're like training modes too.
Yeah, and you have your own personalized AI with a voice that I think talks to you sometimes. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that, but I'm sure I'll find out.
Yeah, you get to like pick the voice for it. It seems all about this whole thing's about creating your own Spartan who's going to fight in the multiplayer.
Yeah, that's what they're on about. They're like, we want you to really inhabit this world and feel like the Spartan in the multiplayer. Like that's supposed to be you in a suit. So it's really supposed to be tailored to who you are and your kind of own personality. That's why the AI have different voices that you can choose from and stuff. And it's gonna be I think it's gonna be a really good multiplayer experience. And if you want to hear like really more about that in a deep dive, you can hear what I talked about in our Xbox plus Bethesda conference review for E3 that we released about a week ago, I guess, at this point.
Yep.
So yeah, go listen to that if you want to hear me talk about it more in depth.
I was excited for this game because I was like, ooh, Halo. But that's kind of my excitement for Halo is like, I always enjoy them, but they're not my number one thing. But everything I've heard about this game, every time they speak about it, makes me more and more and more excited for it.
Exactly. And in the Halo community, I think I told Jaren, I don't think I mentioned it on podcast, but yeah, like even the multiplayer deep dive and stuff and the Halo Infinite multiplayer thing from the conference, the last I checked had like 80,000 likes from the YouTube video and like 2,000 dislikes, which is incredible considering it's somehow united the Halo fan base between the kind of newer Halo 4, Halo 5 multiplayer people and the Halo 1 through 3 stands like myself. That like people are considering this what Halo 4 and everything should have been in terms of a modern iteration of the traditional sandbox arena style Halo 3 combat. It seems like they actually nailed a vision for just modernizing the initial multiplayer as opposed to changing it completely to be more like Call of Duty or something. And it looks really good. Like, you know, like the physics are there and everything. Like it showed in the multiplayer trailer, somebody threw a plasma grenade at a sword on the ground, like on the pedestal or whatever. And the explosion blew it into their hand, kind of thing. Like just that kind of general shit of how the game works and the physics based combat of it and things like that. But it's still modern and it has these new features with obviously a battle pass system and all these kind of things. It's gonna be. I'm excited for it.
It's true. It looks super exciting, and we're definitely down for it here at the X Block.
I'll be playing it when it comes out. You best believe your boy Caleb G will be playing it over the X Block.
Oh yeah, and I'll be right there too.
Yeah.
And another game we'll probably both be playing right when it comes out, but who knows if that's anytime soon, is a new Hellblade 2. I'm going to put trailer in quotes because they said it wasn't really a trailer. And they're kind of showcasing how they've chosen to make their own lives difficult to kind of make something special. So where Ninja Theory's at with this game right now.
Hold on, Jason Schreier's knocking at my door. Hold on, I'm going to go answer it. He's got to go talk about what they're talking about, making it difficult.
And so what they've decided to do is they're building out this big, good, as they describe it, chunky slice of the game before they move into full production. And they showed off this trailer where they're showing off like all the techniques and kind of things that they're doing. And it seems like they're doing a shitload of work now so they can do less work later. Seems to be like a big kind of way that they're tackling this game. Like they've set it in 9th century Iceland. They announced that. And they've been sending their art and audio teams out there to do photography and photogrammetry, which is where you kind of like photograph an asset all the way around and then bring it into Unreal Engine 5, which they're using to like make super like high quality textured versions of the things that you're going to see on screen. And they're combining it with satellite data and they're recreating these enormous plots of landscape, and they're already building actual real costumes and then scanning them into the game. So they're doing all these techniques that you use in the film industry to get real life quality assets.
That game's going to be incredible when it comes out. You know, that's going to be where, you know, the PlayStation stands can't really say anything about how superior a product that Sony, like a Sony game is or something, where it's like that game comes out and it's going to be crazy.
It seems like they're making a film that is going to become a video game. And much like the first one already looked great. And they're talking about how the combat is going to be real and very real and brutal. Like that's what they're going with. And that's why they've been training their main actress for 2 years in combat training, and apparently their animators have undergone combat training, so they understand
Jesus.
the actual animation, how stuff works.
This is, dude, Hellblade 2 is gonna be hardcore, dude. That's gonna be a hell of a game, and it's gonna no pun intended. And that's gonna be coming out, probably also in like 2024.
Yeah.
So, which is good though, I think, because I think more people will have gotten to the Xbox ecosystem at that point because of Game Pass and how fucking good it is and everything else. I assume that more people will play it.
Yep. And the next game, announcing Contraband, when they showed that off at the conference, they showed off that kind of like CG panning trailer through where they announced it. Somehow I still feel like this game's going to come out first, though, because before Hellblade, because it's just Avalanche making another Avalanche game with the stuff that they've learned. They already have the engine, they've already got the technology, and they're making a co-op smuggler's paradise set in the fictional world of 1970s buy-in. It's their most ambitious and spectacular game to date. I feel like everyone says that. And they just kind of talk about how they're taking everything they've learned from 18 years of development across making worlds and Just Cause and all that kind of stuff, and they're going to put it into this game. So that's kind of just like a brief update on that.
Yeah, they're known for making Just Cause, and that sounds awesome. That co-op experience, I assume day one Game Pass. Happy Pride Month. Day one Game Pass. And it's co-op. Jared and I are going to hop in day one. It's a second-party game, which is interesting given how many first-party games Microsoft owns now, or first-party studios. But
yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. There's not too much about that. And lastly, for our E3 deep dives, we're going to talk a bit about Starfield, which also there's nothing about. But Todd Howard went and talked on The Telegraph, which I guess genius move by him to boost The Telegraph's ratings, since you can't even read the article unless you subscribe to them.
I got him, Todd. So, what you do, pro tip, if you're on an iPhone, go into private browsing, and you should be able to read it.
Okay, I'll do that for next time. I wasn't too worried about it because basically every site took out every little thing that he said about the game and threw it in their own articles. The ones that I wanted to touch on were, he said it's like Skyrim meets Indiana Jones, but in space. And I was like, all right, that sounds fun. And he's they're describing it as like less of like a Mass Effect, that kind of game where it's like, get out there and there's this big global conflict going on. It seems to be kind of humanity's, I guess, start into space travel. And that's kind of the angle that they're attacking, where they're going more with like a NASA RPG as opposed to like space combat, all this like Star Wars kind of shit. He said it's not like Star Wars or Star Trek, it's like NASA.
So how are you feeling? I'm just curious, how do you feel about this game?
I like the aesthetic of space as space is seen by us. Like, it's like exploring space with the potential of what we could see in some kind of, like, maybe not we'll see it, but it might happen in some kind of closer future than there's huge light speed ships everywhere. Like, there's a global conflict or I guess a dimensional, like, galaxy-wide conflict. Like, I like this kind of approach of, like, let's just be in awe of space and get out there and see all this cool stuff that's happening.
Yeah, it seems unique in that way, and I'm more of a fan of the high fantasy kind of Elder Scroll games from Bethesda as opposed to the more traditional, like the more, I don't know what you'd call it, post-apocalyptic, I guess, dirtier, hardcore RPG that Fallout kind of is. But this is their first real shot at a game since Fallout 4 in 2015, which had its problems kind of being made mostly for the previous generation of consoles, the 360 and stuff. So I'm kind of interested to see how this game turns out, but I gotta admit that I'm not like super excited for it. I'm not like, hell yeah, Starfield. I'm just like, oh, Starfield. Like, I'm interested to see what people say about that the closer it gets to launch and how it's going to be received and how it looks and what it is. And they have a date for it already though. It's November 22nd. Yeah, so they're confident. Like, they announced the date over a year out, and I guess they're confident they're really gonna try to hit it. So
I guess they're in like polishing kind of stages now.
Probably. I think it's probably mostly done at this point, like all of it even.
Yeah. So that's exciting. Obviously, it's Bethesda, so we're not going to know anything more about it until probably next E3. But, get excited.
Get hyped for Starfield if you're hyped for Starfield.
Other things that were announced at this conference that were not game related. Xbox Design Lab is back for Series X and S. So if you want to make custom controllers, there you go. They're out there.
Again, and just another one of those things that PlayStation doesn't have that makes Xbox the better ecosystem, in my opinion.
And in terms of, I guess, accessibility and ways of playing that kind of help your console out, they've now added those updates that we've previously talked about that include ease of access and game and chat transcription and all that kind of stuff. That stuff's now been actually added to the base model updates and not the preview model updates anymore.
Which Jared and I talked about when we initially discussed them in the preview stuff, and how it's just good that, accessibility features being added. There's no way you can see that as a bad thing. So that's kind of all you have to say about it, really.
Yeah, so if you're interested in that kind of stuff, go check out the articles for that, and maybe that can help you experience games in a better way.
Yeah, good call.
And now Microsoft will bring Xbox Series X and S exclusives to Xbox One via cloud gaming. So this is actually an exciting announcement, because it lets people who maybe can't afford to upgrade to the next gen hardware still get to play those games.
Or can't find a next gen hardware.
Yeah, or I guess can't find it. It lets them play those games just on the console they already have, as long as they're willing to deal with the limitations of streaming.
Yeah, just to contextualize this, I guess, because this doesn't exist in a vacuum. So obviously people know last year, which would be 2020, I guess, if you're, depending on when you're listening to this. So the last year was 2020, when PlayStation was advertising their whole, PS5 and talking about that. Jim Ryan said they believe in generations and how they don't want to kind of double cross release stuff across the previous gen and the new gen. They're making next gen fucking games over the goddamn PS5. Yee. And then Microsoft was like, we're going to support the Xbox One for a couple years. And everyone was like, okay, that's interesting. And then the consoles came out, and it turns out that Jim Ryan straight the fuck up lied. And things like God of War Ragnarok and Gran Turismo and Horizon Forbidden West, they're going to be cross-gen, and they're bigger. And the smaller kind of games that they own are going to be the ones that are on the newer hardware. And even then, maybe they'll port those backward or something. But Xbox actually is doing the opposite, where they announced a ton of next-gen only games at their conference this year. And you're like, whoa, like Starfield's going to be next-gen and only and all this other shit. And it's like, well, that's cool. That's actually great, because it doesn't hold back games. They're developed exclusively with the SSD in mind and all these other things. So the games aren't being held back, which is the argument people over at PlayStation are making is kind of not so great. And it's like, well, but then again, it's like, well, you guys kind of promised you would deliver some stuff to the Xbox One for at least like 2 years or a year and a half, right? And they're like, yeah, we got you covered, babe. And then they're just like, oh, we're going to use xCloud on the previous gen. We're going to try to make that workable on the Xbox One and other things. Or they are. I guess they're not going to try. They're going to do it. And just like tablets, they said, or phones or whatever, you're going to be able to stream these next-gen games onto your Xbox Ones and stuff. And it's like, well, that's great. And because even though streaming has its hiccups, and it's kind of can not be the best experience, maybe a little bit of lag or whatever at this point, it fits the best of both worlds. It's the best compromise between not sacrificing how games are developed and how great they're going to be developed for the new hardware, but also delivering on the promise to the people on the Xbox One and the people who can't afford consoles right now and all these things, where it's like, yeah, you get to experience these. And it may not be in the best way, but, the Xbox One came out in 2013, and it was weaker than the PS4 then. So maybe get over it.
Yeah, and Microsoft just branching out their audience, like keeping people on the platforms they've already got, supporting them, and then supporting the next gen. And then on the development side, they're even reaching out to more people, where Microsoft says more Japanese indies have Xbox dev kits than ever before.
Which is great. So getting into that JRPG stuff with Square Enix seemingly not wanting to work with Microsoft, interestingly.
Yeah, unless they, like, my friends and I briefly talked about acquisitions, where, like, what would Microsoft buy? And because they want more Japanese-related content. And I'm like, Square's too much of a gamble to buy, just in the way that Microsoft wants to treat their studios, where they want to buy them and leave them autonomous, where Square on their own are psychopaths.
Yeah, and they would also hate it. Like, everyone would hate Microsoft for doing that. Because the PlayStation community and ecosystem, they love their Square games, and Square fucking loves them. And so everyone would just be like, fuck you. And plus, I think Square doesn't necessarily like Microsoft the most either. So it'd just kind of be like, we like money.
Yeah, so that one wouldn't make sense. And then my friend talked about Capcom, and we kind of came to the conclusion that doesn't really make sense either, since half of their revenue, which kind of props up why their company would be worth a certain amount, is made a lot off Nintendo. So if you're buying a company, the first thing you do is you don't cut off a revenue stream that is the reason that made them as valuable that you bought them.
That's also a good point, yeah.
So the only one that kind of makes sense is Sega.
Which, yeah, everyone, like, I know you just kind of came to the logical conclusion actually thinking about it for something that, everyone's been saying for years, where it's like, at some point, Microsoft's buying Sega, right? And then we're waiting, we're waiting.
Yeah, because they've actively said that they're going to continue to buy stuff, whether that's maybe smaller studios, like maybe this what are they called, Avalanche and IO. Maybe these games that they're giving them are kind of tests. Maybe IO wanted more money, and that's why, because IO said they had a lot of offers but none of them seemed to fit. Maybe they all just wanted more money than Microsoft was willing to spend on them, so they gave them these games to kind of be like, all right, prove yourself, and then we'll buy you.
Yeah, it would either have to be bringing up indie studios or really kind of these larger publisher acquisition kind of, because there isn't a huge space of independent developers to buy at this point, like development studios that are large, like a Bungie or a IO. Or like you said, I think Avalanche is independent, right?
Yeah.
Blue Point Games. I don't think From Software is From Software independent still?
Yeah, From Software is independent.
And the latter two that I just said are more PlayStation kind of oriented studios anyway. If anything, PlayStation's going to buy From or Blue Point. So there's not much in that big space to buy,
Yeah, I feel like Xbox will buy everything that they possibly can, and I feel like that also relates to maybe some Japanese indies. Maybe they'll buy some Japanese indies that they've been letting them use these Xbox dev kits. Maybe they'll reach more into that market and buy a couple of those.
Sega just makes the most sense to accomplish everything they want with one swoop. So we're kind of expecting that to happen almost.
Yep, and the last thing in Xbox-related news, MLB required trust from Xbox. And everyone's kind of got the same article that Xbox reveals it had to trust Sony with pre-release Series X and S consoles. I don't think there was ever a chance of those leaking. I think all that happened was Xbox gave them the consoles, and we had heard rumors that the PS5 was much less powerful than it ended up being. And I have a feeling that they got those Series X and S dev kits and they went, shit. And then they boosted the power of the PS5.
The only reason I'm kind of even familiar with this is I didn't really think about it. I mean, I thought about it a little bit at the time, but really, Colin Moriarty, who was the previous former senior editor at IGN, he brought up on his PlayStation podcast where when the MLB stuff was announced, he was like, you know what? He was the one who had the insight where he was talking way before articles like this, a long time ago. When they said that they were coming to Xbox and stuff, they're like, you know what that means? They're like, Xbox must have had to have given Sony, I think it's Santa Monica, right? Or what is it?
Yeah, it's Sony San Diego.
San Diego, rather. I get those mixed up for some reason because I'm dumb. But Sony San Diego, like Sony had access to Series X and S dev kits. That means like before the consoles came out. And he's like, yeah, the Chinese walls that must have had to have been put up in Sony to keep all this information sequestered, and segregated for I don't know with what contracts or whatever. But he's like, yeah, man, that's crazy. And now I think someone finally, an Xbox executive finally said something about it. So now the video games industry is writing articles about it. But if you thought about this was known clearly beforehand.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody had to have known this beforehand.
Yeah.
And that is the end of our X Block content. Now we're hopping over to our X Factor discussion, Caleb.
And what is it this week, Jaron?
It is our E3 awards, and
Whoa.
We've come up with our own fun X Block podcast kind of titles. This is inspired by E3 awards giving Forza Horizon 5 most anticipated game of the show, which really pissed off the internet. But
oh yeah, that's because they didn't play Forza Horizon 5, or they don't have access to it, or they're dumb. One of those three.
Yeah, totally. So, Caleb, I want you to read the awards like you would the FAF, and then we'll both give our award winner and give a brief explanation.
Okay. And some may say that these are the objective E3 awards, maybe even official, who knows, but they're definitely superior to everyone else's. I'll tell you that much. I think there's 6 awards we got coming up to give. And the first is the Welp, My Pants Are Wet award. So, Jaron, what made your pants wet?
I think we all know which one this is for me.
Okay, go ahead. What is it?
Dude, it's the console version of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Dude, I saw that. I saw all the features they were adding in the extended conference.
God, man.
That's me.
Had to blow dry your fucking bed afterward, dude. It was so wet.
So what was yours, Caleb? I assume I also know what it was.
Mine, a bit surprisingly for me, what I didn't expect to be super hyped for, but what I was the Halo Infinite multiplayer, which is free to play.
Wow.
Man, I didn't
not even the campaign.
No, because I kind of knew about the campaign, and they didn't really show too much more about it besides just a story beat to get me super more excited. But what surprised me was I didn't expect to care too much about the multiplayer. Like I expected to play it and like it, but I was like, I didn't expect them to nail a proper Halo vision for a multiplayer on Halo Infinite. I didn't expect that at all. And then they showed it off, and I was like, oh my God, that's a Halo game, dude. That's a Halo game they made. Holy shit. And then you watch that whole thing during the conference, and boy, Jaren, my pants were wet, dude. I had my scuba gear on, my snorkel, I was sitting there. It was crazy. So Halo Infinite multiplayer, that was what made my pants wet, Jaren. Didn't expect it. You know, you never expect your pants to be wet, but that time it was.
All right, Caleb, now what's the next award?
Well, since it's in Game Pass.
All right, I'll let you go first on this one.
Okay, for the since it's in Game Pass award, I had Hades. And I don't know if you had the same thing. I had to think about it for a minute, and I was like, maybe I would have bought Hades eventually on sale, but I wasn't really going to dive into Hades, even though it was a Game of the Year kind of contender, and I think winner maybe last year. It's a hugely successful, popular, I think more independent title. I was like, well, it's coming to Game Pass. I think was it August, Jaren, or July, something like that?
August 13th, I believe.
Yeah, so I was like, well, I mean, since it's in Game Pass, I'll probably play it. So exactly how I came to that conclusion. And shout out to Hades for being in Game Pass.
Mine is Back for Blood.
Well, that's exciting. So you wouldn't have bought Back for Blood? You don't think Black for Blood? You wouldn't have bought Back for Blood, you don't think?
Nah, I rarely get those kind of, like, maybe because it's co-op, we might have gotten it on a sale, but this is kind of like cemented that if October rolls around and Halo's not quite out yet, I have a feeling we'll be hopping into this to at least play through some of it before Halo comes out, and then we'll probably return after we finish Halo.
Yeah, I was thinking since it is a co-op kind of game like that coming out around holiday, even if it wasn't in Game Pass, as long as it was a $40 price point, I probably would have bought it.
Yeah, and it definitely won't be.
You don't think so? You don't think it'll be $40 when it comes out?
That's a full price game, 100%. I think they already have pre-orders up.
Yeah, if it was full price, we might have waited for a sale or something, but it would have depended what we had to play it then, around then. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. But there you go. Hades and Back for Blood, since it's in Game Pass, award recipients. What about the next award, Caleb?
The next award is the That's a Lie award.
Which famously would have went to God of War when they announced it for 2021, but, we can't give it retroactively.
The true, that's a lie, true winner for all time. The God of War Ragnarok 2021 fucking JPEG they put on screen.
Yeah, I'll start this one off. I went with Resident Evil Village's DLC, and purely just because how they phrased it. They were like, hey, you guys have been asking for it. That's why we made Resident Evil Village DLC. And I was like, what are you talking? You make DLC for every Resident Evil game until it's like in the ground. You make like 6 or 7 pieces of DLC for Resident Evil 7. There's no way you just made DLC because people were asking you for it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's pretty fair, man. That's definitely a lie. I was also thinking more along the lines of what they said was, going to be announced like a date, and being like, that's not happening. But that's a fair Resident Evil kind of critique of like, but boy, it's like you didn't make it because you asked for it. Like, come on now,
Yeah, so I stretched, I went in a different direction there, but yeah, the whole point of the award was the God of War kind of thing, but I also was like, well, this is also a lie.
It straight up was, dude. Yeah, mine for the That's a Lie award is during the Avatar trailer, the Avatar Frontiers of Pandora thing, and then at the end of the trailer it said 2022. Now it may actually hit in 2022. That's possible, but I saw 2022 when I was watching the Ubisoft forward, and I was like, that's a lie. That's not coming. You didn't even show gameplay or anything. You didn't show anything. I mean, you showed, I think, in-engine footage, which is fine, but it's like, you just put 2022 on there. I don't know, Ubisoft. I don't know, man. I feel like you're delaying that bitch to 2023, and it's gonna come out in March. Calling it here.
Yeah, that's totally fair. That's a good one. I was trying to think of ones that were like release dates, but I felt like everything was at least somewhat close. Unlike God of War, where basically the entire industry laughed and said, that's a lie. But then nobody called Sony out on it.
Everyone and their mom. It was such a meme. It was like, you guys really want to sell PS5s? Huh? You put up a splash screen of a game that's coming out in fucking 35 years, or at least 2022, but Yeah,
for sure. All right, Caleb, hit us with the next award.
The I Can Wait award.
All right, you take this one.
So for the seeing something, basically looking at it at E3, hearing about it, whatever, and then just being like, whew, I can wait for that, Like, you boys take your time, I can wait. That was, for me, Plague Tale Requiem. Man.
Okay.
I played a Plague Tale Innocence, I don't know, it was probably a year ago, or ish. Maybe a little less. Time is just a weird, it's just ethereal thing, isn't it? And I played it, and I was like, the industry had already played it at that point. Everyone loved it when it came out. and thought it was just this kind of surprising, really good story-driven game. And I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I knew it was kind of based around stealth. You got to kind of sneak around and shit. And I played it. Way more graphic than I anticipated. It's just fucking a horribly graphic game. Awesome. Good time.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Yeah, it's a bit depressing too, but you kind of got to, you gotta be in the mood to play it maybe, or just be in the mood to become depressed. And so I played it, and I was a little I thought the game was a bit overrated. I thought it was like good. It was really good in some parts. It was a bit too long for what it was, and but generally it was still a good experience. And the story it was kind of like Jedi Fallen Order, where the story was the best part, but some of the long, too extended kind of sneaking gameplay, whatever kind of elements got in the way a bit. And but it was good. It was really good, and I liked the world that it was set in, which is reality with some alchemical kind of things going on. And it's about these rats and this plague and this whole thing. I'm not going to spoil it for people who may be jumping in after seeing Requiem's trailer. But man, I saw that trailer and I was like, holy shit, dude. And it had the iconic kind of string fucking with your eyeballs and shit. And it showed the chick and she looks older and she's like hardcore now. And I was like, oh my God. And it looked fantastic. I don't know what they're making it in or what they're making it on, but that game looked great. And I think they said it was coming out in 2022. Which I don't know if that's true, but I was like, man, take your time. Like, just make that game good. Because I bet that sequel is going to be way better than the first game, and it's going to be great.
That's fair. I took this award in a bit of a different direction. My pick is Battlefield 2042, and that is entirely because I'm totally going to wait until that game's either eventually in Game Pass or like super, super on sale. Because they put out, October, and everybody's like getting excited. And I was like, yeah, I can wait until you give me that game for free because I ain't dropping any money on a multiplayer only game.
It's coming to EA Play, which is part of Game Pass Ultimate. So at some point. So Jaren's right, where I also can wait, Jaren. I'm not buying that game full price. No single player. Get the fuck out of here. Right around maybe Halo Infinite and all these other games. I'm like, dude, I'm just going to wait.
Yeah. That's totally fair. That's exactly what I was thinking about.
That's a good call. A little bit different direction, but a good call. I like that we went in a different direction a bit. Adds a little bit of spice.
What about this next one? Caleb, hit us with the next award.
The best award. Well, one of the best award. Not the best award, actually. The best award is the final one coming up next. But this one is the FAF Award.
All right. For the FAF Award, I'm just going to give it to a whole conference.
Yeah, I expected you would. I purposely didn't do it.
What do you think? Which one? I'm gonna probably surprise you here.
Well, there are options here. There's 3. There's Capcom. There's not Square Enix's, I don't think. There's what was the other one? Oh no, it may have been Square Enix was where they showed all those Japanese games. Yeah. So Square Enix Conference, Capcom, or Koch Media.
All right. Now everyone who's listening to this is screaming at their phone right now, Koch Media. And I'm going to say, not E3, first off, but also, even if it was, and we wanted to call it E3, I feel like it wasn't FAF because it was such an experience to be there and to watch such a catastrophe and the fan base of said catastrophe just melting down in the chat. So for that, I'm going to give FAF to Capcom because everybody kind of went, well, that was pointless.
It really was pointless though, dude. If you didn't watch Capcom's conference, dude, go watch it on YouTube. Holy shit. That was the most waste of time bullshit I've ever seen. It was crazy. That's a good one though, Capcom's the FAF Award. For those of you who don't know the FAF, we're going to explain it here in a minute coming up. But my FAF Award goes to Just Dance 2022, as it probably will every year. Every year they release another Just Dance game, man. At Ubisoft's Forward, they had that gentleman who seemed really excited to be there, which is kind of cool. He seemed like he was having a good time, but he came up to talk about Just Dance 2022, and I was like, this is just the epitome of our FAF segment, Jaren. This is just it right here.
I'm surprised that you picked that over Rocksmith.
I thought Rocksmith, but then I thought, you know what? Rocksmith has some sort of utility.
That's
and
true.
Then I thought about Just Dance 2022, and initially it was Rocksmith Plus. Then I changed it to Just Dance because I was like, Just Dance is the true FAF.
Yeah,
you don't even get a Rocksmith every year, you know?
And now, for the granddaddy of all awards, the Keenan Allen Award.
The best award.
Now, if you don't know what this is, it's a joke. We've mentioned it before. It's a very inside joke amongst Caleb and I. And it stems from when Keenan Allen gave his, I guess we can say review, his review of Madden. Madden, was it NFL? It must have been 20 or was it 21? No,
it was either Madden NFL 2020 or no 20 rather, or 21. It was one of those two.
Yeah, whichever one it was. And Keenan Allen just said when they asked him, that shit.
He did say that shit.
Which okay. All right. Fair enough. So this is the Keenan Allen Award. We didn't want to call it the That Shit Award because it seemed kind of hurtful. So we called it the Keenan Allen Award. So if someone gets it, they're like, hey, this guy's an NFL player. They must like me.
Yeah, that's what they're going to think. But no, even though he was in the NFL, and he's like, nah, shit. But Jared and I had an unreleased podcast. I think it was kind of our true episode 0 of the X Block. It wasn't even called the X Block then. And maybe you'll hear that one day. Maybe we'll end up releasing it. I think Jared still has the audio, but not today. And we had a whole thing about Keenan Allen in that one. It was fucking awesome. And you should have been there. And you should be sad that you can't hear it. But for now, we have the Keenan Allen Award, aka the It's Shit Award. And I couldn't pick just one, man. I couldn't pick just one.
Oh, you're giving multiples.
No, well, it's kind of like a duel. Like they both have to accept it. It's one award, but they have to accept it together.
And you're gonna give them half.
It's Final Fantasy Origins / Babylon's Fall. Boy, howdy. Whew, those games look like shit, dude. I was like, this is shit. You go watch the Square Enix conference and you watch this Babylon's Fall, Final Fantasy Origins, chaos bullshit. Nah, Jaren. Couldn't pick between them, dude, because you can't distinguish between diarrhea, Jaren. It's all just shit. You know what I mean?
I liked that even their community was underwhelmed with Babylon's Fall. They were like, I was excited for this game until I saw this trailer.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be like a multiplayer game, like an MMO, I think, kind of esque game. And even the Final Fantasy people, from what I understand, at least didn't really like the Origins thing.
Yep. And my award, kind of similar, goes to Final Fantasy, the 1 through 6 remastered collection, where everybody was like, I heard like a collective when it got announced, and then I heard when it said mobile and PC at the bottom.
Dude, that was the most blue-balled a fan base has ever been. They were like, we're finally getting a collection. Final Fantasy 1 through 6 on, presumably PlayStation or whatever, because that's what they like out there. Hell yeah, mobile. And you're like, what was that, dude? And PC, but who cares?
Yeah, they made a game for somehow the 2 furthest apart platforms and couldn't find the middle ground.
You know, Jaren, the Final Fantasy games, famous from PC, famous from smartphones, Jaren. You know how they came up in the industry. Final Fantasy, synonymous with PC gaming. God. Goddamn Keenan Allen Awards.
There you go. That is the end of the X Factor discussion and our E3 awards. Maybe one day in the future, if we're a bigger podcast, thanks to our listeners, we will actually send out these awards with no explanation on what they are.
Nope, just send them out. And it may be mean, it may be not great, but like, I don't know, man. I sat through the conferences. Like, I watched. You could have presented literally anything, and that's what you chose,
Yeah. And I like the idea of sending that's a lie to a Sony first-party studio after they announce a game.
Every year, yeah, that'd be great.
Now moving on to Game Pass or Gameplay. This is a segment in our show where we spin a wheel with all of the Game Pass games on it that we haven't played or that aren't reiterative sequels like Madden or FIFA. And we spin that wheel, it gives us a game for that month, and we play it, and then we review it on the first of the next month before we spin the wheel. And this month's game is Psychonauts, and I've already started playing. Caleb probably doesn't have it downloaded yet.
Dude, I thought about it. Come on, give me some credit.
And that's how the segment usually works until the last week. Usually by the last week I've finished and Caleb hasn't started.
You're basically it. That is it. But man, that one month you show up and on the first week, Caleb's like, I beat it. And you're going to be like, what? And Jaren, you and I usually kind of hold our opinions and give updates to let you know if we've played it, if we've started it, if we've downloaded it, if we haven't it, how far we are in it maybe. If we're kind of liking it at this point, if we want to talk about it, if we're kind of surprised or have surprising opinions, all this kind of shit. And yeah, at this point, not much to talk about, but in a couple weeks, you gotta come back and check out what we think about Psychonauts in the lead up to Psychonauts 2, which not planned, by the way. Literal happenstance chance dice roll of Game Pass.
It's true.
I mean, you can listen to our recording from episode 15, where we actively discuss where we think we're gonna cut it out. We're like, should we like re-roll? Like people aren't gonna believe us, like literally. And then I just decided to keep it in. And then people would know that we were telling the truth. So there you go. That's our Game Pass or gameplay for this week.
And now our last topic on our longest show since our original couple, but we had a lot to cover for E3.
Oh yeah, it was a big week of making up for shit.
Our final topic is the FAF, or I guess our final segment. This is where we talk about all the news that would be a waste of your time to read. So you should just come listen to us make fun of it and provide it to you in a more fun and interesting way.
Yeah, because if you read this article online, like you're dumb. and you should feel dumb for clicking on it. Sometimes I click on them, and I feel dumb. Don't worry. We're dumb together.
They got you.
Yeah, I got.
So, start us off, Caleb.
All right, the microfaf.
The microfaf. Updated Xbox Series X game case design coming later this year. They've got a new game case, everyone.
Oh, you mean like games?
Yeah. No. Not games.
I know
they
you're talking about. I've
literally
seen
just
it, yeah.
made the case look different.
I thought you were talking about
for your physical games.
Critically acclaimed games, mobile case with the screen that you can put your Xboxes in. I was like, how's that gonna work with a Series X? It's gonna look like you're carrying a fucking rocket launcher. But like a guitar case or some shit. I was like, how are you gonna fit a monitor in one of those? Anyway, yeah, the games cases are interesting. I've seen some, some kind of draw ups of what they could have looked like, but Microsoft decided to just put a big white to make sure that, grandma over at the local GameStop that's barely still open, making sure she could figure out which game she was looking at for what system.
That's because she's the only one buying disc-based games.
You're right. And they put this white square or rectangle on it on the left side that says in black text within it that pops away from all the art on the cover or anything. Like Xbox Series X/S, and then it'll say like Xbox One under it if it also supports Xbox One, that kind of thing. Which is a change from Series X titles that released, previously they would have just the big logo of like Series X and S optimized, and it kind of looked bad the way they were kind of advertising it. Now it's a little more streamlined. So there you go.
Yep. And the last thing in the microfaf, the free demos for Xbox's Summer Game Fest demo event have started to appear on the Xbox Digital Store. So if you want to play those, I guess go check them out.
Real demos, Jared? Actual demos?
Real demos.
In my year 2021? Where's the pre-alpha? What are you talking about?
It's because they're like all indie games.
Dude, I want my pre-beta before the beta.
All right, Caleb, hit us with the next one.
Nintendo? Or Nintendo. How do you...
I was thinking like Homer Simpson.
So it's Nintendo? Like that? Like how do you...
Yeah.
Okay. Nailed it.
So Nintendo's new Metroid game was actually first reported by the games media 16 years ago.
That makes sense.
So in June 2005, Dread became the stuff of a legend in-game circles. So they've been working on this game for a long ass fucking time.
You think this surprises me, Jaren? It doesn't. I know Nintendo, and you know what Nintendo is? Shit. For everything. For every reason. And so they're like, even if they weren't, and it's kind of a meme and a joke, if they were legit, like, yeah, we've been developing this game for 16 years and it's ready, I'd be like, that's your normal timeline. I'm not surprised.
And this was my favorite news of the week, actually. Breath of the Wild 2's real name is being held back because it contains plot hints. So is it just not going to have a name until the game's out? Is it just going to say Breath of the Wild 2 and for like the first 2 weeks it's out? Or are they going to add a title to it later? Because then who gives a shit? You're already doing it.
I was going to say, you know that like you have to announce the title before the game comes out, right? So given that context, it doesn't matter when you announce the title, as long as you have a finalized title. Like, are they just lying? Are they just like, we don't have a title because fuck it, we're Nintendo and we're stupid as hell? And so we're just going to say that it's so intricate why we don't have a title that you're not even smart enough to understand it? Is that what they're going with?
Dude, who knows?
Exactly, who knows? Nintendo knows. We don't know, Jim.
All right, hit us with the next one, Caleb.
It's back, and like an abusive stepfather, nothing has changed. That's what Jaron made me read.
Cyberpunk 2077 returns to PSN on June 21st, but the PS4 edition still has issues.
Yeah, no shit, guys. Fucking use it to fucking run your jets, your PS4s.
Why did they leave? Why did they make them go away if the PS version still doesn't work?
Because Sony's just one step up from Nintendo about being stupid. Who knows?
All right, Caleb, hit us with the next one.
People are actually mad about this, ...
GTA Online for PS3 and Xbox 360 is shutting down this year.
Surprising, like, that makes sense, because that's so old. Why bother? But there probably are a solid 40,000 people or more probably playing on those systems.
Yeah, dude, everyone on Twitter was talking about how people can't afford previous gen consoles, let alone next gen consoles.
Yeah, sorry all of you, people in Brazil on your 360s and stuff, because I know they have high tariffs and things, and so there are certain countries that kind of really hard to afford a new console. And I would just be happy that they supported it for this long, honestly.
Yeah, honestly. All right, Caleb, moving on.
Well, yeah, that's me. I wasn't even paying attention. The final part of the FAF, one sentence reactions.
Warzone update removes armored cargo trucks due to players turning invisible.
That's the least surprising thing I've heard this week.
Madden NFL 22's headline next gen feature is dynamic game day.
Wonder if they can watch me dynamically not play that game ever.
Dude, I can't wait for Keenan Allen's review.
That's the best one sentence reaction. What does Keenan Allen think?
Tiny Tina's Wonderlands will have Funko Pops, t-shirts, and home goods.
I like money too, Randy.
That's a good one. Randy does like money.
I know he does.
And now, I will take the final one. Fortnite Thanos Cup brings back the Marvel villain. And now I get to put Fortnite in the tags.
Hell yeah, dude. Every week. Fucking got him, Jared. High five. Nailed it.
And
All
that is the end of our extremely long, probably X-Block podcast. If you listened all the way through, we appreciate you. If you didn't listen all the way through, then you don't hear me right
Fuck
now,
you.
so I can say boo, no one
Yeah.
likes you.
What a bitch, Jared. Fuck those guys. What a bunch of idiots. If you're listening to this later because you paused it, we love you. Thank you.
If you want to support this podcast, go over and check us out on YouTube, The X-Block Podcast. Follow us on Twitter, @XBlock Podcast. Follow us on Instagram, @XBlock Podcast. If you want to hear this on other platforms than the one you're listening to right now, feel free to check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and pretty much every other place that Anchor supports.
Overcast everywhere.
And if you'd actually like to financially support us, like you deserve alimony or something.
Whoa.
Actually, wait, I would deserve the alimony. Whatever.
Dude, you're
Whoever
pulling a
deserves
Caleb.
the alimony.
Pulling a strong Caleb right now, Jared. Watch the fuck out, man.
All right, Caleb, you tell them about the
Dude,
Patreon.
You got to hit us up on patreon.com/XBlock podcast. Not with the take that part out. And then, if you want to throw us $1 or something and maybe give us, $10,000 and be like, Caleb, start an OnlyFans account. Maybe I will, for the right price. I'll just sell my soul and my body. Who knows?
Are you doing a discount right now? Because originally it was a Bitcoin for Caleb's OnlyFans. Now you've brought it down to $10,000, which is about a 80% decrease.
Is it?
So,
What's a Bitcoin cost right now, Jared? I don't know.
I think it's still like 40 grand.
Listen, it's not going to be an extensive OnlyFans. Like, I'll post something. It'll be kind of funny. And I actually have an idea for it. But, it's still got to happen, though. Like, I don't know. We actually have to receive the currency with which to put back into the podcast, as we do. So,
all right, so 1 week discount.
One week
$10,000
to start an OnlyFans. All right, non-binding.
All right, and that is all for the X-Block podcast. Please share it with your friends.
Yeah,
let
share
them know.
it. Go watch our E3 coverage if you didn't. Go look at all that stuff. We made some nice videos. Jared made some nice thumbnails that were kind of the foundation of which were made by my lovely girlfriend. It's good times. They're great.
And that is all for us today. X-Block out.
Thanks for listening to the X Block. New episodes every Monday at 5 a.m.